So this video is going to be talking about the submarine meta. So a lot of people say to me like, what is the meta of naval? How do you use naval most effectively? To be honest with you, every possible combination you can make of navy will always result in submarines being better. So let's just cut to the chase and let's just talk about submarines. First of all, let's talk about why submarines are so good. So submarines for the most part are difficult to spot, resulting in less likely to get intercepted. Also, submarines are kind of single use, so the surface visibility is 1 for a submarine, but a big carrier, the surface visibility is 30. Basically meaning this ship is very, very easy to spot at sea. You can see it floating, where on a submarine, on the other hand, is very difficult to see. All you can probably see is just the surface of the ship just above the water, or maybe even just the snorkel. The submarines in World War II weren't always submerged like modern day submarines. They kind of look like this. And the explanation on why is that when they were on the surface, they could travel much quicker, and also when they were underneath the water, they had limited batteries, I believe, and you had to come to the surface to recharge the batteries. So when you look at sea and you see a submarine, this is what they would have seen on the surface of the water. And then if, for instance, a plane was to attack that submarine, the submarine would submerge under the water, or if it was attacked by destroyers or whatever. But this is potentially what they would spot at sea. This. Until they invented snorkels, which was later in World War II. So there's less of the submarine was above water. So you can see there's just a snorkel above the water here. So therefore, significantly difficult to spot more further into the water. Does that make sense? So let's make a submarine. So end of the day, what is the most powerful submarine in Hearts of Iron 4? That would be the Submarine 3. Just to summarize, the Submarine 3 is the most OP because it has the best stats. And also it doesn't cost too much, where the Submarine 4 requires chromium and an extra piece of steel, meaning the production cost of this one can get quite high. But this one is the sweet spot. Best possible speed, least visibility, and overall, if you put the right torpedoes on it, the most possible attack. Also, it's a good idea if you want to get Submarine 4, the big engine, and then put the big engine inside of the Submarine 3 hull. That is the most optimal build possible. So when it comes down to submarine, you want to balance firepower and also the number of submarines to find a sweet spot. So the submarine we're going to go for is a Submarine 3, the 1940 model. We're going to whack in the biggest possible engine. In most cases, you can go for the smaller engine, the 3. The bigger engine will allow you to go faster, which is more spotting potential, and it will also give you less visibility, meaning the submarine is less likely to be spotted. And now this is the big one. This is where everyone's going to get maximum salt. Are you ready for the salt? The best possible torpedo tube is the tiny one. Why? Because it is the cheapest. As I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, the most optimal strat with submarines is to spam them in highest numbers possible. Once again, I am talking about single player, so you do your own little multiplayer strategies. But this is the most optimal build for single player. I don't care about MP. People are going to ask me as well about radars. There's no point. There really is no point. This is the meta submarine. 570 submarine cost. Look at those babies. So this allows you to do the sweetest combination of firepower, spotting, and overall numbers. The truth is you really want to have as many submarines as possible because you want to cover as much ocean as possible, which you will see very shortly as I explain that. Okay, so we've got 30 submarines right here. Try and look for a Sea Wolf. I don't think we have one as the UK. Gives extra 20% extra submarine to attack. Another bonus for subs that's quite good is visibility reduction too. I'm not going to go into too much depth how spotting works, but trust me, less visibility on your ships means an increased spotting chance. To be honest with you, with naval combat, half the battle is spotting your enemy and then having enough firepower to defeat them. It's always that first. See them, kill them. See them, kill them. If you have lots of firepower but can never see them, well, that firepower's gone to waste because you'll never be able to fight. Superior tactician, and he is a concealment expert, and he's got a decent amount of firepower. Another thing that's really good too is going for the one that has lots of attack too. Anyway, we'll go with this guy for the time being. Jimmy's going to declare war on Poland, and then we can start deploying submarines. So first thing I'd recommend you do with submarines is always select automatic split off. Now, if you want to, you can manually micromanage your submarines if you want to, but it's just not worth it. You can individually click through each one that's damaged, but just don't bother. It's just a waste of time. My advice is just do that and let you sort it out for you. Then make sure you go into the repair queue and assign as many naval dockyards as possible. It's always best to get your submarines back into the ocean immediately, start doing damage. So just max out this number as high as it can go. Initially, when you want to get naval supremacy, you want to avoid areas where people can nav you. So the ultimate weakness of submarines is navs. If you ever get nav strike, which is nav is basically this attack, a naval strike, you can hit the submarine and then knock them out the ocean relatively easily. There's two rationales behind it. One, submarines don't have any anti-air abilities, and also submarines can't be submerged for long periods, so eventually the planes will spot them, shoot them with a very very high caliber shell and burst a hole in the submarine. And then the submarine is dead. So anyway, what you want to do is avoid getting navved. And how do we avoid getting navved? We basically raid in areas where we have the most control. So if you look at Germany, for instance, here, they're more than likely going to be importing and exporting oil from Venezuela, rubber from Malaya, and tungsten from Greece. In that circumstance, they're trading from this port and going all around to the Med. If you deny them their access to the sea, which is here, here, and here, these areas now are being raided. But you can see this number, 46%. It's not very efficient because what happens is submarines aren't as effective as one big death stack that they are split up into multiple smaller fleets. Be aware that if you don't have a big fat stack of submarines, they don't seem to be as effective in fighting in individual battles. So for instance, if you've got like a big stack of 100 submarines in one sea region, that is more effective at fighting and combating enemy ships than multiple split up ones. If you split them up and they get smaller and smaller, sure, they can cover more sea zones more effectively and deny convoys, but simultaneously as well, they are more vulnerable. And there we go, we are at war. And we wait for the first interception. Ah, there we go. We're first intercepting here. So it looks like they're avoiding these regions, which makes sense anyway, because you don't want to go by the UK or you're at war with France. And the English Channel is very vulnerable as well. So now they're deciding to send their convoys around here into the North Atlantic, down and into the Med or Far East. And as you can see in this case, our submarines are intercepting German convoys and shooting their torpedoes and going boom, boom, boom. The glory of attacking in this region is that there's no access to air support here, so they can't nav bomb you here. So this is like a free region to do whatever you please. You can see convoys getting annihilated. And you can see her intercepting it. Oh, look at all these convoys, denying them. So what happens over time is the AI will spot that in this region here, they're getting hit by convoys really heavily. So they'll try and send screening ships here, like destroyers with depth charges, to try and hit the submarines. And if that doesn't work and they have no way of contesting this region, they'll just mark it as a blocked region. So that means they'll avoid that region completely. But that means they're denying themselves resources for the war, so that obviously causes them a lot of problems. Okay, so what they've done is they've marked the English Channel as blocked. They've marked here as caution, avoid, and this one caution, avoid. So the AI is having to decide, where am I sending out convoys that can have a safe passage? And in this case, they're getting intercepted. And they've got the enemy fleet trying to back them up. More than likely, when the enemy fleet arrives, if it ever arrives, our submarines will run away anyway. And there you go, another victory. Another victory. Oh, and the enemy fleet has arrived. They're using the depth charges on my submarines. But my submarines are so unbelievably small and so unbelievably fast that they get away in time. But we're not done yet. Oh no, we're not done yet. If you look at the doctrine, in this case, trade interdiction, particularly down this path, they will make your surface ships have more detection, means increasing their naval raiding efficiency. And there's also raiding efficiency, a flat number, which increases the chance of you raiding. It also reduces the chance of you being revealed when you shoot a torpedo, so therefore you don't have to reveal your chance and therefore give away your position, so therefore you get shot. But then there's also, for instance, submarine attack, submarine HP. Oh my god, there's so many bonuses into trade interdiction to make submarines better and better and better and better. The truth is that destroyers and depth charges you'd probably think are the best counter to this strategy, but it's not. It's actually navs. If you have the ability to grab some of your planes and move them here and then start nav striking, that will actually be a way more effective method of intercepting. So what's happening right now is that their ships might be arriving, their big fleet, but the problem is when they arrive, my submarines just submerge and therefore they're not seen again. Probably the detection isn't high enough so they can't even do it. Did they manage to get one of my guys? Did they hit one of my submarines? They actually did. They actually hit one of my submarines. Oh, gasp. Also, this is one little trick that a lot of people don't know about too, is when you hover over here, it says what's inside of the convoys. So this is freight. This basically means it's transporting like steel or tungsten. But if it says troop transports, that means you're killing divisions. And I'll be honest with you, that's the prize icon. That is the prize convoy. Pew, 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 pew. And the destroyers have arrived. And the submarines are actually firing torpedoes at the destroyers. The fact that submarines can counter destroyers so effective in this game blows my freaking mind. Okay, let's talk about another mechanic that a lot of people don't talk about as well. Automatic reinforcement. All of these are set 37 of 37, means they're reinforced to maximum strength. In the event that one of these submarines will get destroyed, one of these from the reserve fleet, you see this reserve bar here, will be pulled from the reserve and automatically reinforced. There is a way of testing this out. What we can do is go into this, which is the composition, and move it to 40. So now it's 37 of 40, means it's 3 submarines under strength, and then we play the game, and there you go. 3 of them will pull from the reserve fleet, and added to that fleet. So therefore, it's just a way of reinforcing them automatically. It's a way that you can automatically convoy raid and then just not worry about the numbers anymore. Just let them do their own thing. And yeah, so there you go. This is a perfect, in this case, convoy raiding fleet. Now, don't get me wrong, you will lose a few, particularly losing to escorts, or you will lose a few to nav strikes. And it's more than likely we are taking more damage as time goes on. As you see, look, more and more of them are getting repaired. But remember, you're not actually losing submarines because you've got them on automatic split off, meaning that when they do get damaged, they will automatically go to port immediately and then keep reinforcing. And eventually, they will strain the enemy more and more and more until they cannot fight any further. Hallelujah. And what you'll eventually find over time is that the AI will just run out of convoys. They'll just eventually keep burning out more and more and more. Now, the Axis right now have got an exit through the Suez. So eventually, when you start getting more and more and more submarines, you'll start to wrap around Africa like this. So it's basically denying them all of Africa and all of Europe. In this case, we can adjust this a little bit, so it adds a bit more naval supremacy in that region. Yep, 100%. For the most part, I don't think firepower on a submarine is worth your time. So that's the reason why we go with something really simple like this. This is all about survivability, less detection, more HP, and the sub 3 obviously is the most cost efficient. And then at the end of the day, I'm just putting on a small torpedo. And I suppose if you want to upgrade into that later on, you can do that, but my advice is to get the numbers out first. Focus on the numbers first. The numbers first. Someone in my Discord said recently, oh, it's impossible to blockade Germany or Italy. They always seem to have unlimited convoys. I mean, for the most part, that's true. That is true. But you reach a certain point where you just have so many submarines and have so much convoy potential that you'll be doing so much damage to them. It'll just be like insane. Insane. So one little cool thing to do over time is to make your submarine fleets bigger. So this guy's it's 23 of 23. So what you're basically going to do is pop it up to 30. And then it'll pull off the reserve fleet to make this a 30 of 30. And then you can just keep doing that with all of them. So eventually you cover as much area that you want to. Then you start to make the fleets bigger, which increases spotting capabilities, fighting capabilities, convoy raiding capabilities. So you reach the point where you're like a critical mass and you're doing so much unbelievable damage, you just can't do anything about it. And you just dumpster them. Annihilate them. So right, you can spot that this is a zone that I'm getting intercepted a lot. More than likely it's navs, more likely it's doing this. This is usually a bad spot, the Bay of Biscay and English Channel. But once again, you do whatever you need to do. The best way to keep an eye on your Navy as well is to check on individual battles one at a time and just see how things are going. In this case, they just can't counter the submarines. The submarines are just doing way too much damage. And the more you start upgrading trade interdiction, the less likely they'll be able to do it. So I'm so effectively raiding them right now. You can see they've marked loads of regions as caution. So they said no to the English Channel, which it makes sense in a way because this is an area you never want to fight in due to the air superiority anyway. And then you've got all these regions marked as caution. So they know that these regions have got submarines in them. See, here, and they're trying to actively avoid them because they know those are regions that are more likely to get intercepted, which makes sense because they actually will. Okay, shall we show off what I mean by a depth death stack? Merge into a big fat death stack. So here's an example here. So in the Eastern North Sea, I know there's going to be a total amount of 14 enemy ships. We've got a massive stack here. And in this case, we're going to put them on patrol here and put them on always engage. Always engage is a massive risk. Okay, I want to let you know, just not to be shy about this. Always engage is a massive risk because if it turns the opposite way, you are going to lose half of your fleet. So just be aware of that. You might be better off with engaging at high risk. And then we got their massive fleet now. And then we completely, absolutely annihilate their entire fleet. Once again, it is risky. You are losing lots of submarines, but this just shows the flexibility of massive death stack subfleets. And look now, they're navving me. They're actually navving me in this region. So it's not a good idea to stay here. Let's get the hell out. So here's another little important piece of information. It's like, where's the best location to convoy raid? So you've got to ask yourself, from Western Hemisphere to North Hemisphere, where do convoys move through? So through this area, the American region of the world, the only two areas convoys can move through, the Panama Canal and also the Cape here at the very bottom. And when it comes down to moving from Western Europe and Africa to Eastern Africa, Indian Ocean, the only two regions they can move through are the Suez Canal and the Gibraltar Strait, or through the Cape of Africa. They're the only two regions to move. So the truth is, you just raid all those regions. It's as simple as that. Because they're all the regions those resources can move through. So if I now have locked out the Suez Canal, I've locked out the Panama Canal, I've locked out the Cape, having a little bit of time with raiding capabilities here because a lot of our fleets are out of service because due to repairs. It will happen. It tends to come in big waves usually. And then the minute they get back out to sea, the efficiency will shoot back up. So there's other regions as well in the Pacific too. All of the convoys running from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean all come through this region. And Straits of Malacca is a really key one. But if you get the Straits of Malacca, as well as the far eastern Indian Ocean, in this case, it's all locking out the east and west. And at that point, you've covered all the choke points in the entire ocean of the world. So at that point, you're winning, I guess. This path here covers all of the kind of choke points in the entirety of the world. And you're probably going to ask you the question like, well, Germany and Italy, they're not going to be at war with people from like in the Pacific, are they? Well, no, they won't. But they will be trading with nations like Venezuela for the oil. They'll be trading with nations like Brazil for rubber, or Siam for rubber, or in this case, some of the resources Japan's captured. So, for instance, it all kind of goes around into one big circle anyway. This is a really good spot to intercept convoys throughout the world. Trust me, that they don't seem to go through the Indian Ocean. They always seem to go through and hug on to the coastlines around here. Hence the reason why this is such an effective area to convoy raid. Look at all these freights intercepting. Oh, Japan! This is the sweet spot. I love to do this. I love to do this every single game. But if you get enough submarines, you can completely convoy raid around Japan and cut them off from the mainland, and therefore they'll lose their entirety of their army. It is the most satisfying feeling in Hearts of Iron 4 when you pull it off. But you have to be very, very careful though, because Japan's fleet is pretty big. You have to kind of wait for them to kind of like grind down, usually by taking most of the Pacific Islands, and then at that point you can start pushing towards the mainland. But be aware, it's a difficult thing to pull off, so be careful. The carpet sieging of planet Earth. These regions are pretty good because of the islands in the Pacific. You can see as we start intercepting all the convoys here, they do some sick damage. Annihilating. Oh, this is what I mean by Japan's fleet. If you intercept their main fleet, you will have a lot of problems. They've got a lot of navs too, based upon the ships, so be aware of that. Hence the reason why they're so effective. Look how quickly we're eliminating their ships here. It's just insane. Just shows the difference of good admiral, good doctrines, and decent submarines. Remember, these submarines aren't state-of-the-art, by the way. They're basically as cheap as possible to do as much damage, get in, get out, do what you need to do. And even intercepting their main fleet here and actually having an easy time. Some of these regions here, like the Coral Sea, Solomon Islands, these are not really good regions to have, especially kind of pushed towards their island regions. Also, I find that the South China Sea is not a good area to hold on to. So right now we're having a bit of combat here, but this from my perspective is still a win. Oh, another upgrade that's really important is naval refits. Really important that. 15% repair speed is amazing. How's Japan do when it comes down to its convoys? 6-2-10 with 0 fuel. Ah, the glorious numbers. Also one factor to be aware of too, if they run out of fuel, their naval capabilities are going to be more limited, as you'd imagine. So when you see that they've got no fuel, it might be a good opportunity to encircle the Japanese. Encircle them. And now they are completely encircled. At this point, they have no convoys and no fuel. They're completely screwed. GG. I'm curious to see what Japan looks like right now. Oh, look at all that red. Look at all this. Oh. Annihilate. 0, 0, 0. Absolutely wrecked. Well, anyway, this is a fully embargoed Axis. Anyway, I think we're done now, so let's just look at the final breakdown. So, the amount of losses for Germany that just was completely inflicted just solely at sea was 338,000 from the UK. Italy lost 223,000 completely at sea. And Japan lost 336,000. That's interesting how they're very similar, aren't they? And these were all troops that were lost at sea. That's an insane amount of manpower, though. It's one of those ones that doesn't decide the war, but it definitely makes an impact on overall shenanigans. People have found out the meta of ships, and it's got to the stage where people just want to find shortcuts, ways around, and they have. So most of the time it involves cheesy strategies with subs or refitting battleships with AA guns and stuff like that, the cheesy mechanics. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed today's stream. It's been a good one. Apart from that, guys, hope you have an absolutely awesome day, and I'll see you guys later. See you later, boys.